Today's tip is about applique. Now normally I do my applique all by hand, I stitch by hand, but sometimes I'm in a big hurry, and today I've started doing this border by hand. As you can see, the flower and these leaves are stitched by hand. They have that nice puff that you get when you do beautiful hand stitching. But I am out of time. This has to be done for market. So I'm going to stitch all of these. I've got a lot of vines and stems, and I'm going to stitch the vines by machine, and I wanted to show you how I do my machine stitching. First of all, make sure you have the throat plate on your machine that is the wide opening, not the single hole one. This one I use the single hole when I'm just stitching so that my thread and my fabric doesn't get caught down in the machine when I'm straight stitching. But if you're going to zigzag, you need to have the slot here. So change that if you've got the other one on. I'm going to do a zigzag stitch, so I press zigzag, and then I turn my width of my zigzag. This is the width. I turn it down to 0.6 or 0.5, really tiny, okay? And then my length, this is the length of the zigzag, and I turn that down to about 1.2. I've got that a little bit longer. I'm going to zig and zag off of the applique piece. So I'm going to zig over onto the piece and zag into the background. I want my needle to go in right next to the piece, against it in the background, and zag over there. Zig, zag, zig, zag. I was exaggerating how big the zigzag is very tiny. Let me show you. See how the zig goes over onto the applique piece and then zags right back onto the background? Nice and slow. And what that will do is give you a nice even stitch that just grabs the barely edge of your applique piece, so that it will hold it in place, but it doesn't show much thread. Now I normally use, when I'm doing this method, I normally use a monofilament clear thread on the top and cotton thread in the bobbin. But today I have, I'm using Aurifil, of course, and I have a thread that matches really well. So I'm just using the cotton thread on the top, and you can hardly see the stitching, but it's going to hold those vines in place, and I can get done quicker. So that's today's tip.